Quick links for Odysee, BitChute, Coffee, Discord, or email. If you want to get a hold of me, use the Discord and email. So let me have a bit of a contrary opinion here, at least contrary to what the people in the comments were saying. Bit of a hot take. I am absolutely on board pressuring these billion-dollar companies to share the wealth all the way down. Oh no, you don't want a CEO to be able to buy a $15 million home. He'll only be able to live in a $3 million home. Practically a pauper. Yes, if that means that the writers and artists and everyone else gets a little bit more, then I am fine with using social media to pressure these people. People use cancel culture for the most petty, small-time BS, like Megan Fox and the innocuous Trump comments going to the grappling event. Much ado about nothing. Why not do something that matters? Like pressure billionaire companies to share the wealth with everyone who works there. It's as if people on Twitter are kept so busy fighting each other over a Karen or a microaggression, which seems to distract them from CEOs and actors who are flying on private jets to environmental conferences. I'm not making that up. They charter private Learjets, which burns how many liters of fuel per second, to fly like one guy with a two-man crew, and then plus wait staff there. Like one jet. Oh, gee, you burn 50,000 liters of fuel on a Learjet to fly to an environmental conference. Are you insane? Oh no, the rules don't apply to us because we're that important. Did Robert Downey Jr. or, oh my God, Greta Thunberg, she takes a sailboat across, but they have to fly people back and forth on jets to reposition the crew. So it's all virtue signaling, but if you just hopped on board a 747, it's like you would have burned the minimum amount of fuel. Or heaven forbid, you do a Zoom conference. Everyone else can go on Zoom, but apparently you can't, because it doesn't. Like you're not saying anything important. It's just the optics of having a little 18-year-old girl running around, just being a puppet for puppet masters. Anyway, did Robert Downey Jr. need $65 million for one movie? All these PC baby outrage kids on social media, they just seem to ignore that. They seem to be hardcore socialists, except that they never actually do anything. They march around in around a LA spa, and they stab each other accidentally because a man allegedly was nobody knows if the guy was there or not. He was allegedly in the ladies' room, so now they're protesting the spa, but they don't know why. The spa didn't do anything. The spa followed the law. It says men can use the women's room and women can use the men's room, and that's the law in California. The spa didn't do anything, good or bad. They just followed the law. And we don't even know if anything happened. It's just some lady doing a video. It's like, yeah, it probably did happen, to be fair. California's pretty freaking weird. But people are protesting still for like 2 weeks, and it's like, why? What are you protesting? The spa? The spa didn't do anything. Are you protesting the woman? Oh no, the woman's black, and black people scare the piss out of you. So you went down a few steps on the oppression ladder, and you just sidestepped the black woman. You're like, ooh, cannot have the optics of Antifa talking, being rude to a black woman. So they protest the spa owners who are Asian. But what are they protesting them for? They don't know. They honestly don't know why they're there. And while they're there, they stab one of their own comrades by accident because they're idiots who don't know what they're doing. They all want to eat the rich, but it's like they're just useful idiots to keep people distracted while the bankers, media moguls keep getting richer. They have social media and they don't do anything with it. Why not start with movie companies? Call out the wealth disparity. But if they organized and actually took some money from the CEOs and passed it over to the writers, the CEOs would call up Zucker, Facebook, and Jack Dorsey and just tell them to ban these hashtags. Shut it down because it's hurting our pocketbooks. Yes, it would really be that easy. Like the DNC working with Facebook to get people kicked off. Gee, that's not terrifying. Oh, or sending your messages, your Facebook Messenger messages, to have the government monitor them so Facebook will kick you off. What are you doing on Facebook in the first place? There are alternatives to Facebook Messenger. And they would. There's no grassroots on social media. What trends is what the puppet masters allow to trend. Antifa and BLM is doing their masters' bidding. If they weren't agents, they wouldn't be allowed on social media. Everything you see on mainstream social media is the allowed narrative. If you have a group calling out Soros and the Rothschilds, they're just going to get kicked off. Twitter is 100% bred in circuses to distract the cattle. The groups that call out globalists eventually get kicked off. Anyone that is able to act as a lever to change the globalist narrative, first you're shadow banned and then you're just kicked off. Doesn't it seem odd that stuff like Project Veritas is so rare? They call out globalist media lies, of which there is no shortage. Project Veritas or Film Your Marxist Professors, go on Twitter and search those terms, or blue checkmark hate or verified hate, or search for the Stop Asian Violence. That stuff is either missing, or it's 1% of what it should be, or it goes back to 2018. Twitter is like being in an amusement park and thinking that it is a real fantasy world. Everything on Twitter is speech that the puppet masters approved of. It's like the Truman Show, but if someone starts to notice that it's all fake, they just get disappeared and replaced. It's as if they never existed in the first place. When you're talking about certain issues between billion-dollar companies and artists, the power and experience differential in negotiating contracts is way, way too extreme. Why not use the power of social media to bring attention to these things? Twitter kids want to open the borders, but why not focus on helping the people who are already here? They want socialism or communism, but they want it at the end of a rifle. But they actually have the power to pressure companies to share the wealth right now. And I'm talking about bypassing an act of Congress, just using social media pressure. Why not try to make these things better in America, at least starting in the entertainment industry right now? You literally could do it. We're not talking about a mom and pop company like Comicsgate where one guy hires people to work on his stuff. You're talking about the ultra wealthy class. Twitter kids can eat the rich and start on these Weinstein types, but they never do. Instead, they burn down a mom and pop's hardware store and then they congratulate themselves. Great, now the bank owns it because the guy went bankrupt. So you made a middle-class family poor and added wealth to the bankers. Good job, Antifa. It's like you were controlled by the bankers the whole time. Is my motive helping artists and writers, or just pointing out hypocrisy? Does it matter? People on the moderate right tend to simp too much for billionaires because they have a knee-jerk reaction. Capitalism is God. Anything socialism is bad. Crony capitalism, communism, socialism, it's all kind of the same thing. By that, I mean, in theory, de facto and de jure, an ultra-wealthy class of parasites that are at the point of being so wealthy that their money is just making money. I don't exactly have an issue with a level of wealth in society, but I do know that wealth disparities between the rich and the poor make for a very unstable society. And I'm pointing out that Antifa, BLM, the Twitter slacktivists are marching through middle-class or even upper-middle-class neighborhoods and burning down small businesses or canceling people like Megan Fox, who in Hollywood terms are powerless. Why don't they go hold their protests in front of CNN or in front of a banker's gated community or one of Nancy Pelosi's or Maxine Waters or Bernie Sanders' many mansions? They burn down used car lots and the KFC, which is probably independently operated. Then when people flee the cities, the wealthy politicians and bankers buy up the property cheap and rent it out. You'll own nothing because the puppet masters will own it all. What if the politicians and bankers fan the flames to cause rioting, to drop property values so they could buy it cheap? Gee, would they manipulate people to manipulate the market and cause so much human suffering and loss of life? Oh, I'm sure they wouldn't do that. That's like inconceivable. It's like Antifa and BLM are just tools of the ultra wealthy so that they can seize power. My point is the Twitter commie kids actually could boycott Hollywood to get them to pay these small writers and artists and everyone else more money. But they don't. They're so deep on the plantation that they think they are free. Black families in Oakland were holding an event to talk about the victims in the community of violence, who 99% of them were killed by other guys in the community. So Antifa came to protest the black families and were yelling that it was the police who were doing it and waving their ACAB signs. But the older generations of the black folks were outraged that these Antifa kids were basically telling them, don't think for yourself, get back on the DNC Soros plantation. Gee, who does Antifa actually work for? So with the writers and artists getting screwed, it seems like a simple injustice that could be fixed with a little social media pressure. The Twitter kids could actually accomplish something, but it's not flashy, or it's the wrong demographic, or their puppet masters really don't want any attention shined on Hollywood. It's like hang and hung. I never know which one's right. So the commie kids remain useful idiots protesting black parents who lost their kids to violence caused not by cops, but by generations of single moms and welfare. The left used to be for the blue collar. Now it's totally controlled by billionaire globalist media, Hollywood, and politicians with multiple mansions who don't actually want to earn the votes, so they decided to just start importing votes and use BLM and Antifa as their useful idiot brown shirts. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, guys. I will see you on Odysee and BitChute.